I was 68 years old when I fell in love again. Or at least, I thought I did. Her name was Sandra. Sandra Mitchell. She had a beautiful smile, kind eyes, and a way of looking at me that made me feel like I wasn't just some old man waiting to die. She laughed at my jokes. She remembered the little things I told her. She made me feel alive for the first time in 2 years. For 8 months, I thought I'd found a second chance at happiness. A miracle, really. After losing Betty, I never expected to feel anything again. But there was Sandra, like a gift from heaven. Turns out, heaven had nothing to do with it. Sandra Mitchell was a professional con artist. Her real name was Denise Hartley. And by the time I figured out the truth, she'd stolen $45,000 from me and was planning to take everything else. But here's the thing about Earl Dawson. I spent 38 years running an auto shop. I know when someone's trying to sell me a lemon. I know when the numbers don't add up. And once I finally opened my eyes, Sandra didn't stand a chance. My name is Earl. I'm 68 years old, and this is the story of how I fell for the oldest scam in the book, and how I made sure the woman who fooled me never does it to anyone else again. But first, I need to tell you about Betty, because none of this makes sense without understanding what I lost, what she meant to me, why I became so vulnerable in the first place. I met Betty Ann Parker in September of 1977. We were both 17 years old. She was working the counter at her daddy's hardware store, and I came in to buy spark plugs for my old Chevy pickup. She had brown hair, freckles across her nose, and a laugh that could stop traffic. I asked her to the homecoming dance 3 days later. She said yes. We got married in June of 1981. I was 21, she was 20. Her parents thought we were too young. My parents thought we were crazy. But we knew what we had. We knew it would last. And it did. 44 years. We built everything together. I started Dawson's Auto Repair in 1987 with 1 bay, 1 lift, and more ambition than sense. Betty did the books, answered the phones, made sure the customers were happy while I was under the hood. By the time I sold the shop in 2022, we had 6 bays, 8 employees, and a reputation as the most honest mechanics in Davidson County. That shop put both our kids through college, paid off our house, gave us a good life. Betty and I raised 2 children in that house. Marcus came along in 1983, Jolene in 1986. We watched them grow up, graduate, get married, have kids of their own, 4 grandchildren between them. Sunday dinners every week, at least until life got busy. We had 44 years of Sunday dinners, 44 years of Christmas mornings, 44 years of falling asleep next to the same woman and waking up grateful she was still there. And then, in March of 2023, everything changed. Betty was diagnosed with breast cancer.
The doctors said she had a chance, but it would be a fight. Betty fought for 18 months. Chemotherapy, radiation, experimental treatments. She lost her hair, lost 30 pounds, lost the energy that had always made her seem 10 years younger than she was. But she never lost her spirit, never stopped smiling, even on the worst days. "I'm not leaving you yet, Earl Dawson," she'd say when I sat by her hospital bed holding her hand. "You'd fall apart without me." She was right. She was always right. Betty died on September 14th, 2023, a Tuesday morning. I was holding her hand when she took her last breath. We'd been married for 44 years, 2 months, and 17 days. And just like that, she was gone. I don't know how to explain what happened next. I'd always thought of myself as a strong man, independent, self-sufficient. I built a business from nothing, raised 2 good kids, fixed problems for a living. But losing Betty broke something in me. The house felt empty, too quiet. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and reach for her, and she wasn't there. I'd start to tell her something funny I'd seen on TV, then remember she was gone. Every room had her in it. Her chair, her books, her coffee cup still in the cabinet. I sold the shop about a year before she died. Thought we'd travel, see the country, enjoy retirement together. Instead, I sat in an empty house, watching the days blur together. Marcus and Jolene visited when they could. They had their own families, their own lives. I didn't want to burden them with my sadness, so I put on a smile, told them I was fine, and spent my evenings alone. The loneliness was suffocating. I didn't know what to do with myself, didn't know who I was without her. That's when I started going to church more often. Not because I'd suddenly found religion. I'd always believed in God, same as Betty. But after she died, I needed to be around people, needed to hear voices that weren't coming from the television. Pastor Warren's Sunday sermons became the highlight of my week. At least there, I wasn't alone. And that's where I met Sandra. She appeared about 6 months after Betty died, new to the congregation, recently widowed herself, she said, lost her husband David to a sudden heart attack, moved to our little town to start fresh, get away from the memories. I noticed her right away, hard not to. She was attractive, mid-50s, I guessed, with blonde hair and a warm smile. But more than that, there was something about the way she carried herself. Graceful, kind. She volunteered for the coffee hour after service, always making sure everyone had what they needed. One Sunday, she brought me a cup of coffee without me asking. "You look like a man who takes it black," she said. I did. Betty always teased me about it. "How'd you know?" I asked. "I have a sense about people," she smiled. "I'm Sandra, by the way, Sandra Mitchell." "Earl Dawson." "I know." She tilted her head. "Pastor Warren told me about you, about your wife. I'm so sorry for your loss." We talked for an hour that morning. She told me about her husband, David, a retired accountant. Heart attack on the golf course, gone before the ambulance arrived. She understood my grief. She didn't try to fix it or minimize it. She just listened. When I got home that night, I realized something strange. I felt better, lighter, like a weight had shifted just slightly. I thought about calling Marcus to tell him about the nice woman I'd met at church, but something stopped me. I didn't want him to think I was trying to replace his mother. It was too soon for that conversation. So I kept it to myself. Looking back, that was my first mistake. Over the next few weeks, Sandra and I started spending more time together. Coffee after church became dinner on Wednesday nights. Phone calls became long conversations that stretched past midnight. She was interested in everything: my life, my family, the shop I'd built, the years with Betty. She never got bored, never changed the subject. And she shared her own stories too. Her childhood in Georgia, her years as a nurse, the volunteer work she'd done after David died. She made me laugh, she made me feel like I mattered. By the 3rd month, I was falling for her. By the 4th month, we were official, holding hands at church, having dinner at my house, making plans for the future. I felt young again, hopeful, like maybe life wasn't over after all. But not everyone was happy about it. Marcus came to visit about 5 months in. Just him, without Lisa or the kids. He said he wanted to talk. We sat on the back porch, drinking iced tea. He was quiet for a while. Then, "Dad, I need to ask you something about Sandra." Something in his voice made my stomach tighten. "What about her?" I did some checking, just basic stuff, public records, social media. He paused. "Dad, Sandra Mitchell doesn't exist.
before about 3 years ago. No credit history, no work history, no social media presence, nothing. I felt a flash of anger. You ran a background check on my girlfriend? Dad, listen to me. Something's not right. No one is invisible for their entire life and then suddenly appears at 60 years old. That's not normal. Maybe she just values her privacy. Not everyone lives their life online, Marcus. It's not just that. The way she moved here right after losing her husband, has she ever shown you a photo of him? Any proof he existed? I stood up. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from anger. You've never liked anyone I've been interested in since your mother died. You just don't want me to be happy. That's not true. Get out, Marcus. He stared at me. Dad, I mean it. Get out of my house and don't come back until you can respect my choices. Marcus left. We didn't speak for almost 2 months after that. And that's exactly what Sandra wanted.
I didn't know it then. Didn't understand that everything, the church, the timing, the coincidences, was all planned. Every moment, every conversation, every touch of her hand on mine. I was a target. And I'd just pushed away the one person who could see the truth. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Because before I tell you how I caught her, you need to understand how deep in I was, how blind, how foolish, and how everything changed the night Betty's voice finally broke through. The money requests started about 2 months in. Small at first, so small I barely noticed. Sandra's car broke down one afternoon. Transmission problems, she said. The mechanic quoted her $3,500. She was embarrassed, apologetic, said she'd just moved and didn't have the savings to cover it. I hate asking, Earl, I really do. I'll pay you back as soon as I get on my feet. I didn't hesitate. 38 years in the auto business, I knew transmission work was expensive. And Sandra had been so good to me, made me dinners, listened to me talk about Betty for hours. The least I could do was help her out. I wrote the check that same day. She never paid me back, but she also never mentioned it again, so I let it go. That's what you do for people you love, right? You help them. You don't keep score. Then, about a month later, she told me about Danny. Danny was Sandra's younger brother, 52 years old, she said, lived in Memphis. They'd always been close, especially after their parents passed. He's all I have left, she told me one evening. We were sitting on my porch watching the sunset. Her eyes were wet. My husband's gone, my parents are gone. Danny's the only family I have anymore. I understood that. After Betty died, Marcus and Jolene became my whole world. I couldn't imagine losing them too. A few weeks later, Sandra came to me crying. Danny had been diagnosed with kidney failure, needed dialysis 3 times a week. His insurance was refusing to cover most of it. The bills were piling up. He couldn't work. He was going to lose his apartment. I don't know what to do, Earl. I've already given him everything I had, but it's not enough. She wasn't asking me for money, not directly. She was just sharing her pain, leaning on me. But I knew what she needed. How much? I asked. $8,000 would cover the next few months of treatment, but Earl, I can't ask you to. Sandra, I took her hand. I have the money, and you're important to me. Let me help. She cried harder, hugged me tight, called me her angel. I wrote another check. Over the next 6 months, the emergencies kept coming. Danny's treatment was more expensive than expected, another $5,000. Sandra's landlord raised her rent. She needed help with the deposit, $3,000. Danny needed surgery. The hospital wanted payment up front, $10,000. Sandra's car broke down again, another $2,500. Each time there were tears. Each time there were promises to pay me back. Each time I told myself this was just bad luck. Life is hard. Good people struggle. I was helping someone I loved. By the time I finally started counting, I'd given Sandra nearly $45,000. I didn't tell Marcus or Jolene. I knew what they'd say, especially Marcus after our fight. I told myself it was my money, my choice. I wasn't hurting anyone. But I was starting to avoid my kids' phone calls, started making excuses when they wanted to visit, because somewhere deep down, I knew something was wrong. I just couldn't admit it to myself. Then Sandra pushed too far. It was a Tuesday evening, about 7 months in. We'd just finished dinner at my house. She was washing dishes, always so helpful, always so thoughtful, when she brought it up. "Earl, I've been thinking about our future." "Yeah?" "We've been together for a while now, and I know things are getting serious." She dried her hands, turned to face me. "I think we should consider combining our lives more, officially." My heart jumped. Was she talking about marriage? "What do you mean?" "Well, for starters, I think it would make sense for me to be on your bank account, just as a backup, in case something happens to you. You know, if you get sick or can't get to the bank, I could help manage things." Something cold settled in my stomach. I didn't say anything for a moment, just looked at her. "I'm not trying to overstep," she added quickly. "I just worry about you, Earl. You're alone out here. What if you had an emergency and couldn't access your own money?" It made sense. On paper, it made perfect sense. But something felt wrong. For the first time in 7 months, I heard a voice that wasn't Sandra's. It was Betty's. "You know when someone's selling you a lemon, Earl. You've always known." I forced a smile. "Let me think about it, Sandy. It's a big step." Her face flickered. Just for a second, something cold behind those warm eyes. Then the smile came back. "Of course, honey. Take all the time you need." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation I'd had with Sandra over the past 7 months. The way she always knew exactly what to say. The way every emergency seemed perfectly timed. The way she'd pulled me away from my kids, so gradually I hadn't even noticed. Betty's voice again. "Stop ignoring what's right in front of you." The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in months. I started paying attention. The first thing I noticed was the hospital bills. Sandra had shown me paperwork for Danny's dialysis, bills from Memphis General Hospital. I'd seen them dozens of times, always with an urgent balance due, always with Danny's name at the top. But something bothered me. I'd spent 38 years running a business. I knew what legitimate invoices looked like. These bills were almost right, but the format was slightly off. The logo looked fuzzy, like it had been copied from a website. And the phone number at the bottom? I tried calling it once, got a disconnected signal. I got on the computer and searched for Memphis General Hospital. It didn't exist. There was a Memphis Medical Center, a Memphis Baptist Memorial, but no Memphis General. The hospital on Sandra's bills wasn't real. My hands were shaking as I kept searching. I pulled up the bills she'd shown me and compared them to real hospital invoices I found online. The differences were subtle, but they were there. Formatting issues, wrong fonts, missing information. These weren't hospital bills. They were forgeries. But that wasn't all. I started thinking about Danny. Sandra talked about him constantly, showed me photos, told me stories about their childhood. But something didn't add up. Last month, I'd walked in on Sandra FaceTiming someone at my kitchen table. She ended the call quickly when she saw me, said it was Danny checking in. But the background behind Danny wasn't a Memphis apartment. It was somewhere tropical, palm trees, ocean. At the time, I thought nothing of it. Maybe Danny was on vacation before he got sick. Maybe it was an old photo. Now, I wasn't so sure. I went through Sandra's social media. The accounts she'd shown me were sparse, just basic posts about church events and inspirational quotes. But I dug deeper, searched her name in different variations, and I found something.
A Facebook profile from 3 years ago. Different name, Denise Hartley, but the same face, same smile, same eyes. The profile had been deleted, but cached versions were still floating around. I found photos of Denise with a man who looked exactly like Danny. Except in these photos, he wasn't sick. He was healthy, tanned, smiling. And the caption on one photo read, "Raymond and me celebrating 10 years together." Raymond, not Danny. My whole body went cold. They weren't brother and sister. They were partners in every sense of the word. That night, I drove to the cemetery. I parked my truck next to Betty's grave and sat there in the darkness, engine running, heater on. Just me and her headstone and the cold November wind. I pulled out my phone, found a photo of Betty from our 40th anniversary. She was laughing at something I'd said, her eyes crinkled at the corners. "I'm sorry, sweetheart." My voice cracked. "I've been such a fool. You've been gone 2 years, and I couldn't handle being alone. I wanted so badly to feel something again that I ignored every warning sign. I pushed Marcus away when he tried to tell me the truth. I gave a stranger $45,000 because she smiled at me and told me I was special." I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand.
You always said I was stubborn, said I never asked for help, never admitted when I was wrong. You were right. You were always right. I looked at her photo on my phone. But I hear you now, Betty. I finally hear you. I sat there for a long time. The truck's engine hummed. The wind rattled the bare branches of the trees. "I'm going to fix this," I said finally. "I'm going to catch her. For me, for every other lonely fool she's done this to. And I'm going to make things right with Marcus." I put the truck in drive and headed home. I had work to do. The next morning, I called Marcus. He picked up on the 4th ring. His voice was cautious, distant. We hadn't really talked since our fight. "Dad? Son." I took a deep breath. "I'm sorry. You were right. About everything." Silence. "Sandra, she's been scamming me. The whole thing. The church, the dead husband, the sick brother, it's all fake. I've given her nearly $45,000. More silence. Then, "I know, Dad." I blanked. "What?" "After our fight, I kept digging, quietly. I didn't want to push you further away." His voice was heavy. "Her real name is Denise Hartley. She's been doing this for at least 12 years. I found records of victims in Georgia, Florida, Texas. One guy lost $180,000. Another lost over $300,000. I felt sick. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have listened?" I closed my eyes. He was right. I wouldn't have. "I'm listening now, son. Tell me everything." Marcus drove up that afternoon. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Sandra had asked for my bank account, and he showed me what he'd found. Denise Hartley, born 1973 in Georgia. Multiple fraud charges in 3 states, but she'd never served time. Always moved on before anyone could catch her. Changed names, changed cities, changed churches. And Raymond Hartley, not her brother, her partner, 58 years old. They'd been running this scam together for over a decade. He played different roles depending on what the mark needed. Sick brother, abusive ex, threatening creditor. The sick brother angle is their favorite, Marcus said. Kidney failure, cancer, something that requires ongoing payments. They drain the victims slowly, so it's harder to track. How many people have they done this to? That I could find, 6. But there's probably more. People don't always report it. They're embarrassed, ashamed. I understood that. God, I understood that. What about the police? I called a Detective Anita Reyes down in Nashville. She's been tracking Denise for 2 years. Never been able to catch her in the act. Marcus paused. But she's very interested in you, Dad. Interested how?
She thinks you might be able to help, if you're willing. I thought about Sandra, about her smile, about the way she'd held my hand and called me her angel while picking my pocket. I'm willing, I said. What does she need?
2 days later, Marcus, Jolene, and I sat in Detective Reyes's office at the Nashville Police Department. Detective Reyes was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s. She'd been tracking Denise Hartley across state lines, building a case piece by piece. But Denise was careful. She never left enough evidence. By the time victims realized what had happened, she was already gone. "We've interviewed 6 victims," Detective Reyes said, "but none of them are willing to testify. They're too embarrassed, too ashamed." She looked at me. "You're different, Mr. Dawson." "How so?" "You're angry, and you want to fight back." She leaned forward. "That's what we need. Someone who's willing to help us catch her in the act." "What would I have to do?" "Keep playing along. Make her think everything's normal. When she pushes for something big, the bank account, the house, whatever, we'll be ready. We'll catch her taking the bait, and we'll have everything we need for federal charges." I thought about it, about looking Sandra in the eye, pretending nothing had changed, while knowing exactly what she was. "There's one problem," I said. "She wants me to add her to my bank account. That's a big step. She'll expect me to move forward on it." Jolene spoke up. "I can help with that." Everyone turned to look at her. "I work at First Tennessee Credit Union. Sandra doesn't know that. Dad never told her where I work. I can set up a fake appointment, create paperwork that looks real but isn't. When she comes in to sign, she'll think she's getting access." Jolene smiled slightly. "She won't be." Detective Reyes nodded slowly. "That could work. If she shows up expecting to be added to your accounts and signs fraudulent documents, that's intent. Combined with the evidence we already have, it's enough for an arrest," Marcus finished. I looked at my children. My son, who I'd pushed away when he tried to protect me. My daughter, who was risking her job to help me. They'd never given up on me, even when I'd been too stubborn to see the truth. "Let's do it," I said. "Let's catch her." The next part was the hardest. I had to go home and pretend nothing had changed. Had to smile at Sandra. Had to hold her hand. Had to act like I was still the lonely old fool who believed every word she said. She made it easy, actually. That's how good she was. Within an hour of being with her, I almost forgot what I knew. Almost forgot who she really was. But then I'd catch a glimpse of that coldness behind her eyes, that calculating flicker when she thought I wasn't looking, and I'd remember. 3 days after my meeting with Detective Reyes, I told Sandra I was ready. "I've been thinking about what you said," I told her, "about the bank account." Her eyes lit up. She hid it well, but I saw it. "Really, Earl? You're sure?" "I'm sure. I want us to have a future together. What's mine should be yours." I paused. "But I want to do it right, officially, at the bank, with proper paperwork." "Of course, honey, whatever you want. My daughter Jolene works at a bank in Nashville. She can set up an appointment for us, easier than going through strangers." Sandra's smile flickered, just for a second. She didn't like that. Didn't like involving my family. But she recovered quickly. "That sounds perfect," she said. "When?" "Saturday morning, 10 o'clock. I squeezed her hand. "And maybe we should bring Danny. He's practically family too now. I'd like to meet him in person." Sandra hesitated. "Danny's still not feeling well. The trip might do him good. Fresh air, change of scenery." I smiled. "I insist." She studied my face for a long moment, looking for signs I was onto her. But I'd spent 38 years negotiating with customers, vendors, employees. I knew how to keep a straight face. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, Earl, Saturday. Danny and I will both be there." I kissed her forehead. "It's going to be the start of our new life together," I said. She had no idea how right I was.
Saturday, November 22nd, 2025. I woke up at 5 in the morning, couldn't sleep anyway. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table going over everything one more time. The plan, the timing, the words, the moment I wanted to say. For 7 months, I'd been a fool. Let a stranger walk into my life and pick me clean. Pushed away my own son when he tried to protect me. Gave $45,000 to a woman whose real name I didn't even know. Today, that ended. I arrived at the bank at 9:15. First Tennessee Credit Union, Nashville branch. Jolene met me at the side entrance, away from the main lobby. She hugged me tight. "You okay, Dad?" "I will be, after today." She led me to a small conference room in the back. Detective Reyes was already there, along with 2 uniformed officers. They'd been in position since 8. "Mr. Dawson," Detective Reyes shook my hand. "You ready for this?" "I've been ready for a week." She nodded. "Remember, just act normal. Let her make the moves. We need her to sign the documents willingly. Once she does, we've got intent to commit fraud. Combined with everything else, it's enough for federal charges. What about Raymond? If he shows up, we take him too. He's got priors in 2 states. This will be his 3rd strike." Marcus was waiting in the parking lot, sitting in his car with a clear view of the entrance. He'd wanted to be in the room, but we couldn't risk Sandra recognizing him and getting spoked. I looked around the conference room. The fake documents were spread across the table. To Sandra, they'd look like legitimate account authorization forms. In reality, they were worthless, but her signature on them would prove she intended to steal. Everything was in place. Now, we just had to wait. They arrived at 9:58.
I saw them through the conference room window. Sandra stepped out of a silver sedan, wearing a nice dress and her warmest smile. Behind her, a man I'd never met in person, Raymond Hartley, the brother Danny, who'd supposedly been dying of kidney failure for the past 6 months. He didn't look sick. He looked healthy, tanned, well-fed. And why wouldn't he? He'd been living on my $45,000. Sandra walked through the front entrance like she owned the place. Raymond followed, playing his role, walking a little slower, looking a little tired, still pretending to be the sick brother. Jolene met them in the lobby. "Sandra, I'm Jolene, Earl's daughter. He's waiting for you in the conference room." Sandra's smile faltered for just a second. She didn't like this, didn't like being on my family's turf, surrounded by people she couldn't control. But she recovered quickly. She was good at that. "So nice to finally meet you, Jolene. Your father talks about you all the time." They followed Jolene down the hallway. I stood up as they entered the conference room, opening my arms for a hug. "Sandy, Danny, thanks for coming." Sandra embraced me, kissing my cheek. "Wouldn't miss it for the world, honey." Raymond shook my hand. His grip was firm. His smile was practiced. "Mr. Dawson, it's an honor to finally meet you. Sandra's told me so much about you." I bet she had. Probably told him exactly how much I was worth. "Please, sit down. Let's get started." Jolene played her role perfectly. She explained the forms, walked Sandra through each page: account authorization, beneficiary designation, emergency access provisions. Sandra nodded along, barely reading the fine print. She just wanted to sign, wanted to get her name on my accounts before I changed my mind. "And this last form," Jolene said, sliding the final document across the table, "gives Sandra full access to your checking and savings accounts. She'll be able to make withdrawals, transfers, and account changes without your signature." Sandra picked up the pen. "This is so exciting, Earl." She squeezed my hand with her free one. "Our future official." I smiled, said nothing. She signed the first page, then the second, then the third. Raymond watched with barely concealed excitement, probably already calculating how long before they could drain everything and disappear. Sandra set down the pen and looked at me, beaming. "There, it's done." I nodded slowly. "Actually, Sandy, there's one more thing." The conference room door opened.
Detective Reyes walked in, badge visible on her belt. 2 uniformed officers followed, positioning themselves near the exits. Sandra's face went pale. "What is this? Earl, what's going on?" "Denise Hartley," Detective Reyes said calmly. "You're under arrest for fraud, identity theft, and financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult." Sandra shot to her feet. "My name is Sandra Mitchell. I don't know who—"
Ma'am, we have your fingerprints on file from Florida. Your real name is Denise Hartley. You've been running this scam for at least 12 years. Reyes pulled out a folder. 6 victims that we know of. Total estimated losses over $2 million. Sandra's eyes darted around the room, looking for an exit, looking for an angle. Raymond stood up slowly, hands raised. "Officers, this is clearly a misunderstanding. I'm just here to support my sister." "Raymond Hartley," Reyes cut him off, "also under arrest. You have priors in Georgia and Florida. This is your 3rd strike. You're looking at federal charges." Raymond's face darkened. The friendly mask disappeared. For a moment, I saw the real man underneath. Cold, calculating, dangerous. "You can't prove anything," he said. Reyes smiled slightly. "Actually, we can. Mr. Dawson has been cooperating with our investigation for the past 2 weeks. We have bank records, forged documents, and recordings of Miss Hartley requesting access to his accounts." She paused. "We also have 6 other victims willing to testify." Raymond looked at Sandra. Sandra looked at Raymond. For just a moment, I saw something pass between them. Fear, panic. And then Sandra turned to me. The mask came off. Not all at once. She tried the tears first. Always the tears. "Earl, honey, please, this is all a misunderstanding. I love you. I would never—" "Stop." My voice was quiet, but something in it made her freeze. "I know who you are, Denise. I know what you've done. I know about the victims in Georgia and Florida. I know you targeted me before you even walked into that church." I stood up slowly. "I know your brother isn't your brother. I know he was never sick. I know the hospital bills were forgeries." Sandra's face changed. The tears stopped. The warmth disappeared. What was left was something cold, something empty. "How long have you known?" "Long enough." She laughed, actually laughed, a bitter, ugly sound. "You old fool! You really think you're special? You're just like all the others. Lonely old men who can't stand being alone. You practically begged me to take your money." I felt the words hit, but I didn't flinch. Maybe I did. Maybe I was lonely. Maybe I wanted so badly to feel something again that I ignored every warning sign. I stepped closer to her. "But here's the difference between me and your other victims, Denise. I'm not ashamed, and I'm not going to stay quiet." I reached into my jacket and pulled out a photograph, slid it across the table. It was a screenshot from her phone. Her and Raymond on a beach, palm trees, ocean, tropical drinks in their hands. "Cancun," I said, 3 weeks ago, while you were telling me Danny was too sick to travel, while you were crying about hospital bills. You were on vacation with my money." Sandra stared at the photo, said nothing. "I spent 38 years running an auto shop. You know what I learned in all that time? I learned how to spot a bad deal. I learned when someone's selling me a lemon." I leaned in close. "You're a lemon, Denise, and I should have seen it from the first day you handed me that cup of coffee." Raymond lunged toward the door. One of the officers caught him, spun him around, slammed him against the wall. "That's resisting arrest," Detective Reyes said calmly. "Add it to the charges." Sandra just stood there, frozen. The game was over, and she knew it. "You'll never get your money back," she said quietly, spitefully. "It's gone. All of it." "I know," I nodded, "but you're going to prison, and you're never gonna do this to anyone else." The officers moved forward. Handcuffs clicked around Sandra's wrists, then Raymond's. As they walked her toward the door, Sandra looked back at me one last time. "You're still just a lonely old man, Earl. That hasn't changed." I thought about that for a moment. "Maybe," I said, "but I've got my family back, and you've got a prison cell. I'd say I came out ahead." The door closed behind her. And just like that, it was over. Marcus was waiting in the lobby. He'd watched the whole thing through the glass, Sandra and Raymond being let out in handcuffs, loaded into separate patrol cars, driven away. When I walked out, he was just standing there, eyes red. "Dad?" I hugged him, held on tight, the way I should have held on months ago when he tried to warn me. "I'm sorry, son. I'm so sorry I didn't listen." "It doesn't matter now." His voice was thick. "You're okay. That's what matters." Jolene joined us, then Lisa, Marcus's wife, who'd been waiting in the car with the kids. My grandchildren, Emma, 12, and Jake, 9, ran over and hugged my legs. "Grandpa, what happened? Why were there police?" I knelt down to their level. "Grandpa made a mistake, but he fixed it, with a lot of help from your mom and dad." Emma looked at me with those serious eyes, so much like Betty's. "Are you okay now?" I smiled, really smiled, for the first time in months. "Yeah, sweetheart, I think I am." That was 3 months ago. Denise Hartley, Sandra, is awaiting trial on federal charges: fraud, identity theft, wire fraud, elder financial abuse across state lines. The prosecutor is pushing for 15 to 20 years. With the evidence we gathered, plus testimony from her previous victims, she's not going to walk away this time. Raymond took a plea deal, 15 years, no parole. Turns out he'd rather take the certainty than risk a trial. He'll be 73 when he gets out, if he gets out. I'll never see most of my money again. They'd spent it, the vacations, the hotels, the fancy dinners. By the time the accounts were frozen, there was only about $8,000 left.
But Detective Reyes connected me with a victim advocacy group. They helped me file insurance claims, work with the credit bureaus, get my name cleared. It's not perfect, but it's something. More importantly, they connected me with other victims. People like me, lonely widowers, grieving widows. Good people who made the same mistake I did. Most of them never reported it because they were too ashamed. I started speaking at their support groups, telling my story, warning others about the signs I missed. If someone seems too perfect, they probably are, I tell them. If they're pushing you away from family, there's a reason. If they always need money, they're not looking for love, they're looking for a target. It doesn't bring my money back, but maybe it saves someone else from losing theirs. Last Sunday, we had dinner at my house. First time in almost 2 years that everyone was there. Marcus and Lisa with Emma and Jake, Jolene and Kevin with their 2 boys, my best friend Larry, who'd driven up from Memphis. The table was loud, chaotic, kids arguing over who got the last dinner roll, adults talking over each other. Exactly the way it used to be when Betty was alive. After dinner, Larry and I sat on the back porch. He'd brought a bottle of whiskey, the good stuff. "Hell of a thing, Earl." He poured 2 glasses. "Never thought I'd see you get taken like that." "Neither did I." "You doing okay? Really?" I thought about it. The loneliness was still there. Betty was still gone. That would never change. But the emptiness? That was different now. "I'm doing better," I said. "I've got my family back, I've got a purpose, and I'm not hiding from the world anymore." Larry nodded, raised his glass. "Betty would be proud of you. You know that, right? She'd say you were a damn fool for a while there, but she'd be proud of how you finished." I smiled,
clinked my glass against his. Yeah, I think she would. From inside the house, I heard Marcus laugh at something Jake said. Heard Jolene telling her boys to settle down. Heard the dishes clattering in the sink. The sounds of a family, my family. Sandra had tried to take that from me, tried to isolate me, turn me against my own children. She'd almost succeeded, but almost isn't enough. If you're watching this and you've met someone who seems too good to be true, I need you to hear something. They probably are. Romance scammers don't look like criminals. They look like angels. They show up at churches, community centers, grief support groups. They find lonely people and they study them, learn what they want to hear, become the perfect partner. And then they take everything. I lost $45,000. Others have lost more: life savings, homes, retirement funds. Some people have lost the will to live.
If someone is pushing you away from your family, ask yourself why. If someone always has emergencies that need money, ask yourself why. If someone won't show you real proof of who they are, photos, documents, a past that can be verified, ask yourself why. And if your children try to warn you, listen. I didn't. It almost cost me everything. Not just the money, my relationship with Marcus, with Jolene. The people who actually loved me, not the woman who just wanted my wallet. It's not too late. It's never too late to open your eyes, to ask for help, to fight back. I'm 68 years old. I built a business from nothing. I raised 2 good kids. I buried the love of my life, and I survived. A con artist thought she could break me. She was wrong. If you've experienced something like this, if you fell for a romance scam and you're too ashamed to talk about it, please leave a comment, share your story. You're not alone, and you're not stupid. These people are professionals. They do this every day. But the more we talk about it, the harder it is for them to hide. If you know a senior who's suddenly secretive about a new relationship, who's avoiding family, who keeps needing money for emergencies, check on them. Really check on them. They might not listen at first. I didn't, but keep trying. I share stories like this every week here on John's Revenge Stories. Real people who stood up for themselves when everyone counted them out. If this story meant something to you, hit that subscribe button and the bell so you don't miss the next one. And if you think Sandra, or Denise, or whatever her real name is, got exactly what she deserved, hit that like button. It really helps more people find these stories. Take care of yourselves, friends. And remember, the heart wants what it wants, but the brain should have a vote too. Don't let loneliness make you blind. I'll see you in the next one.